Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this live broadcast from. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. Welcome to today's call. This is a live Q&A session on the topic of Hinduism. We are here to answer your questions on anything you'd like to ask about modern Hinduism. Now, we start with a focused topic. Today's topic is going to be that are the Hindu Shastras actually limiting us? That's a really interesting topic to dig into. And what we will do is we will watch that video, which is a 5-minute clip. In the meanwhile, I would like you to post your questions on this topic into the comments area, either on youtube.com/Hindu Academy or on facebook.com/Hindu Academy. We will pick up your questions and we will take your comments, your thoughts, etc., and we will incorporate them into our live broadcast here today. After we've done the Q&A session on the particular topic, we will then open it up to any particular question you would like to ask about Hinduism. So we're looking forward to today's broadcast, and let's get started with the focus topic video, and I will bring that up shortly. Moving from the traditional version of Hinduism to the new modern contemporary version of Hinduism, how is it that the scriptures from the Pandits and the Pujaris are hindering this transition?
Very good issue. I'll be very honest. A couple of weeks ago, I was making fun saying that Yamraj, there cannot be one individual.
Seems like we are having some technical issues here, so bear with us whilst we try to fix this. I think there is some problem with turning the video on, so bear with us, we'll try and fix this.
In moving from the traditional version of Hinduism to the new modern contemporary version of Hinduism, how is it that the scriptures from the Pandits and the Pujaris are hindering this transition?
Very good issue. I'll be very honest. A couple of weeks ago, I was making fun saying that Yamraj, there cannot be one individual dark black person with a mustache sitting on a bull with a little man saying, okay, when you die, I come and thump you and take your soul away, especially your Betty. This is pure narrative, colorful narrative. There is no such individual collecting souls. Even though we have used it in all our scriptures, all our shastras, even the high philosophic shastra, like Upanishad, Kathopanishad talks of Yamraj. So you say, oh, it must be real. It's in your shastras. So one individual said, Mr. Lakhani, why do you challenge me? There's no Yamraj. I say, I'm telling you, it's a narrative. You say, but how can you make this? How can you decide? This is how we decide, my friend. I'm warning all our Hindu youngsters, think like this. Adi Shankara has given a beautiful way of relating to spirituality and religion. He says, Shruti, Shastras, is a good way to start. Saying, it's in our Shastra. Means Shastra means kind of scripture that your religion has produced. Shastra. So it's in the Shastra. Start with that, no problem. But the next word he uses is very powerful. He says, Yukti, Shruti, Yukti. Then use your common sense to make sense whether what you hear, how you interpret it is possible or not possible. We all have this thing called rationality. It's a great gift that God has given us, or if you like, this thing that we possess manifests as rationality. Don't underestimate it, don't undermine it. So anything that you hear in the name of religion, including from Mr. Lakhani, if it offends your common sense, reject it. So this young man said, I want to reject you, Mr. Lakhani. I can't believe that there's no Yamraj. I said, fine, reject it. You're allowed to think like this only in your tradition. And other religions, if you do that, they'll really ostracize you. In your religion, say, use your rational faculty. If anything doesn't appeal to your common sense, reject it, even if it's in the Shastra. So I'm saying the idea of Yamraj that you see in the Shastra is something purely narrative. Don't get fixated, think there's this literal person saying, I am your Yamraj, I'm coming with these little mates and thump you when you die. It's nonsense. How it flies in the face of common sense. Fully switched on Shruti, Shastra is fine, Yukti. Other thing initially I must bring in, because the Shastra is a word that's been thrown in my face left, right and center. First of all, Shastra is just a kind of giving, if you like, a title to a particular way of looking at any particular enterprise. Sometimes you can say geography, one Shastra, history, another Shastra, mathematics, another Shastra. In Hinduism, we say Artha Shastra, we say Nyaya Shastra, we say Jyotish Shastra. We have given this kind of terminology to mean scriptures relating to that particular field of activity. We're fine with that. Again, the Shastras can be, if you like, philosophically oriented or can be ritually oriented, etc. But the most crucial factor that you must remember is this. The reason why the Hindu youngsters struggle with Hinduism is they are not prepared to move on. Shastras, all the Shastras, including the highest philosophy, says it comes with a sell-by date. If circumstances are changing, humanity is evolving, it can relate to spirituality in a different way. Allow for it. Don't say, no, it written 2000 years ago in this Shastra, Manusmriti. Don't do that. You are in trouble straight away. You are a living tradition, so the Shastra may have some interesting aspects to it, but don't get caught up by them. Rise above them. This is the important thing. Modern Shastra, I'll give you an example. Manusmriti is ancient Shastra, okay, saying, okay, this is how a human being should behave. And then we have, say, Shikshapati from the Swami Narayan. And this is a modern version of how human beings should behave. So, no, Manusmriti said, no, the modern one is evolved face of Hinduism. Recognize it and subscribe to rather than get caught up with antiquated stuff. And the most important feature regarding everything I say is use your rational faculty to suss out what appears real or not. Any system you adopt, if it's not well joined up, if the bits that are not reconciled within itself, throw it away, because that is a jagged system. In science, we do the same.
Does not serve you at all.
If you approach any hypothesis which is not self-consistent, don't waste your time on it. It must be self-consistent. So even the religious ideas we have must be self-consistent for us to allow us to engage with it. So be aware of Shastras and their limitation and this ability to rise above it. And I'm rattling a lot of traditionalists, because traditionalists are stuck on the Shastra. The Shastri said so. Then you go with your Shastri. Good luck to you. But I will not advocate it whatsoever.
वैष्णव जन तो तेने
Fantastic, Manish Bhai. Thank you so much for jumping in and saving the day. As luck would have it, my Zoom crashed at the very moment I started sharing that video. Technology, a wonderful thing, but a double-edged sword as well. So, folks, thank you so much for your patience as we got through that little technological glitch. Manish Bhai, back to you for getting started with today's focus topic.
You are on mute, Manish Bhai, I think.
Thank you, Nishit Bhai. It's a very interesting topic today because, times, almost every week, we get this question, where can we find the original Shastra, the original Vedas, and these sort of questions keep on coming to us. And here, Jai Bhai is saying something very interesting. So, we see our Hindus very interested in stories of Ramayana, Mahabharata, and that is Srimad Bhagavatam is very popular. And also most of us will have Srimad Bhagavad Gita in our home. And there are some people who's very into Shiv Puran and things like this, books like this. And what is the problem with that? What is Jai Bhai trying to say, Sitalin, here?
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say is that it's good to have those scriptures as a guidance, those ancient scriptures, and they do contain wonderful truths, either through the guise of an allegory or a story. And they do have the value in the sense that, especially for young children being introduced to Hinduism, it's much more colorful, much more attractive if you talk about all of the stories from the various Puranas and everything, and learning about all the gods and goddesses than learning about high philosophy. So there is a value to some of these ancient scriptures, but there's a couple of things. One is that as you grow up, you have to start using, as Sad was saying in the video, your yukti, your rational faculty, and make sure that actually when you grow up, you realize that all of these stories about the gods and goddesses, treat them as stories. They are not literally true. A lot of these stories are not literally true. And the second thing is that you have to then move on to the philosophy of Hinduism, the deeper aspects of Hindu philosophy, and not get so stuck in the storytelling side of it, because it's like sort of the whole process of growing up spiritually. So you focus on the higher principles, these wonderful ideas of Atman and Brahman, which are talked about in esoteric Hindu philosophy. But then again, you could also stretch even further and say, Hinduism is such an evolving religion, evolving tradition. Why go back to even those ancient books? Why not refer to modern prophets and saints who have had the same sort of experience? And they can explain it to you in a much more sort of, accessible way through English, which is the most sort of beautiful way of relating to spirituality, because times have changed, hundreds of years have passed. So you need someone who is relevant, who can explain it to you in a modern language and help you apply spirituality in part of your everyday life. Vijay Bhai?
I think, Sita, you are spot on. Just to add a few more bits, I think one thing is that quite often, I guess sometimes, we tend to compare ourselves with Abrahamic faith. We need to be very careful because the Abrahamic faith are the religion of the book. They actually say that we are the people of the book. Whereas Indic faiths are experiential. So as Sita mentioned, the scriptures are very important, but they are not it. And one thing important to remember here is that the ancient acharyas of India, they did not make distinction between different fields of study. Artha Shastra, Bhugol Shastra, Itihas, other all kinds of Shastra, like Nutriya Shastra. They are all books of knowledge. So all these were seen as endeavors to improve yourself spiritually, to move forward in life and become a better person. No distinction was made. But the fact still remains that as time went by in ancient India, different acharyas came with the same topic, like, Bhugol, like geography. As we get better and better, new Shastras came on that. So it's been evolving in all fields, not only in the spiritual field. And the evolving knowledge is quite new. I think one thing to remember is I know that, look, I love the Vedic scriptures. They're beautiful. They give an entire picture of my faith. I love the Gita. But the thing is that if you notice one thing, knowledge keeps on evolving. And one thing to mention, by the way, the Vedas we have today, the 4 Vedas, are about 1%. Don't forget, 99% is lost. So many Brahmanic schools at one time. There was so much knowledge, so much experiential knowledge about Atman Brahman. What we have is but a snippet of what remains today. And as Sita mentioned, nowadays we have a lot of modern experiential giants who have experienced God firsthand. They are also the Vedas. They're speaking the Vedas out, living Vedas. The Ved just means knowledge, right? So they are bringing modern knowledge to us. So that knowledge is no less or more than any other knowledge. So remember one thing, knowledge is something that we use to move forward, but it doesn't stop there. Don't get stuck in the book saying, the book says that, oh, but I think different. I should stop thinking now because the book is supreme and I should mold my mind. Don't do that. You are your own master. Use your thought and your thinking. And by the way, just something interesting to mention is that in the Mundak Upanishad, because we teach it in the GCSE class, actually it mentions in that Naya Matma Pravachena Labhyo Na Medaya Na Bahuna Shrutena. So things like listening to sermons, scriptures, all that stuff, or even thinking ultimately that will not give you moksha. It's experiential. So all these are tools, but tools to get us the experiential, experience. So keep that in mind. Books are but a tool or a guide. And you have to think, if you don't accept that, it's okay. Don't feel bad about it. Hinduism actually allows that. That's the beauty of Hinduism. Nobody's going to come and challenge you, oh, you're a blasphemous person. It won't happen. So feel free to think for yourself and move forward. Yeah. Thank you, Manish.
Thank you, Vijay Bhai. Profound explanation there. So, Vijay Bhai, we see, that many people, we recite the Bhagavad Gita without understanding. And it's just, people just try to read it and say, okay, we need to read Bhagavad Gita because that's our scripture. But there's no trying to understand or critically reason with it to try to digest it. Is there any benefit? Because, some of the Bhagavad Gitas, which I've seen, they come with Mahatma, and Mahatma says, even if you read one slok regularly, you go to get moksha. So, so they would read, and my relatives even, they love to read and read the translation as well, and this Mahatma. Now, one of these Mahatma, itself says, if you read the Bhagavad Gita without this Mahatma, you won't get any benefit from it. You have to read the Mahatma to get a benefit from it. How do we, tackle this kind of mentality, Vijay Bhai?
I think, I guess the idea is that how do you get people somehow or the other read the scriptures? That is not a bad thing because you want to encourage your children. But I think for adults, sometimes these caveats are put in to try and force people that, oh, by the way, you must read one a day. You must do this to achieve moksha. Or read them for the Mahatma. The idea is this, that how do you get people to get attached to scriptures? But I think sometimes it goes a bit too far because there's a kind of a threat close to it that if you don't do this, you're going to be in deep trouble. That is just a way to make sure you try and stay on the path of spirituality. But I think in reality, it shouldn't really happen. I think nobody should mind on that. But the other thing you mentioned is very interesting. It's quite important to remember that even in the Gita, we have many, many interpretations. If you look at the three main scriptures which are used to kind of establish Vedanta philosophy, which is the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Gita, which is what all the great acharyas have used to kind of start their philosophy, like Shankaracharya, Advait. Then Ramanuja came and said, so sales scriptures, Shankara, this is my understanding, is Advait, and this is how it is. Then you have Ramanuja goes, yeah, okay, I have the same scriptures, but you know what? I'm in a bit of conflict with Shankara. I believe this is what Gita says. So because the words sometimes can be very subjective, so people use their own ways to interpret. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's good to analyze and think what you're reading. It's okay if I don't agree with Manish Bhai. So Manish Bhai understands this verse is that, my shloka understanding is this. That's okay too. And that's why we have very many philosophers in the same book. We have so many Vedanta schools coming out. That's okay too. I mean, what was quite interesting once I asked them, when I was very young, I asked my father, how come they actually conflict? Because they do conflict, the Vedanta philosophies. But there's nothing wrong with that's the beauty of Hinduism, that you can actually do this. You can happily agree, disagree with your interpretation and move on towards your own spiritual path. In many ways, in that sense, Hinduism is quite, I would say, individualistic, that you can decide for yourself how you understand scriptures, how you use them to guide your life. You don't have to follow like a herd mentality. Everybody is doing it, I must do that. That's not how Hinduism works. But yeah, valid question. It's very interesting to discuss this. Sita Ben?
Yeah, I think, especially as you were saying, like there are so many different interpretations of these scriptures, and a lot of the ancient philosophy, they were written in such short aphorisms. Like I think they deliberately tried to make them extremely short, and they can then be interpreted in such a variety of different ways. That they tried to make it extremely poetic and short and beautiful, but the downside is it can sort of become a bit confusing. So, I mean, from a personal perspective, rather, it's beautiful to look at it, from an artistic point of view, the philosophy and the artistic way that it has been written. But if you're really looking for, the philosophic gems of Hinduism, why not go to people who are explaining it to you from their own experience in English, who, there's much less room for error in that case, Why not go to people like Raman Maharshi, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, who explain it in such a simple and beautiful way in our own modern language. And we're very lucky that, for example, at the time of Sri Ramakrishna, they started sort of importing ice, to India, and it was a very new sort of thing. And he used that as an example of showing pluralism, that, God is like ice and water. So without having, you don't get that in the Vedas. So why not go to the modern prophets who are using modern examples to explain the same thing?
Wonderful explanation there, Sitaben. So continuing with this theme, what we've seen is most of our books of ours is written in Sanskrit, and different people translating it and interpreting it in different ways. Now, some people are even saying the books like Manusmriti was mistranslated, and actually there is nothing bad about it. And they're saying there's nothing bad in Manusmriti. So how useful do you think a book like Manusmriti would be in this day and age? And should we be following this kind of books word by word? Because we get many books which actually are contradicting each other. For example, Shiv Puran will not agree with Bhagavad Puran. Sitaben?
The important thing to remember, which a lot of people do forget, is that a lot of these scriptures, including the Manusmriti, do have this big, big caveat right at the front of it saying, this is used for this particular time in history, for this particular place. It's not meant to be eternal and universal throughout time, throughout space. And surely it's been so many hundreds of years since the Manusmriti was written that if we look back at the way that they expect society to behave, according to the modern sort of way that things are done, they're actually pretty outrageous. There's some of the things that they say, they're very, very, derogatory for women, for people who are considered to be of lower caste. It's very, very derogatory if you look at it. So it's very important to understand it for what it was. At that particular time, that's the law book of the time. And I think the only real benefit of the Manusmriti currently is see it as a historical sort of reflection of society at that time, but do not use it as a way of, living in society now. You just get completely smashed up if you live like that. It's horrendous the way that they treat women, for example. So treat it as in a way, like a historical reflection of society. There were things that are considered controversial that were happening then, the way that they perceive women and lower castes, but move on. Live according to the rules of the country that you're living in now. And we've also got modern religious, saints like who have produced like the Shikshapatri, modern law books. Why not follow those rather than the ancient ones, which no longer apply? Jay?
I think Sita, very valid points you've covered there. Yeah, one thing about Manusmriti, actually, I checked that a while back. There's about over 24 interpretations of different variations of the same book, because there's not only one You'd be surprised. And the other thing is, whenever people mention Manusmriti, and I ask them, okay, do you know of any of the law books? They don't know, because for some reason the Manusmriti is so hyped up in the Western world. If you ask them, name me any of the law book, they have no idea. But actually, to be fair, there's many of the law books. Manusmriti is but one of many. There's Parasara Smriti, there's Vithalnath Smriti, there's Yajnavalkya Smriti. Yeah, and then the modern ones, like, in the Swaminarayan, they have Shikshapatri. In the Sai, they have their own code of conduct. So the code of conduct actually varies. And if you notice one thing, people who read the Upanishads will realize that in the Upanishads, there is no moral code of conduct, because code of conduct cannot be fixated and cannot be linked to your idea of moksha. Code of conduct is important insofar as creating order in society and giving people the chance to create creative things by having order. That's all the code of conduct books that it does not give you moksha. Don't think of it as a book which gives you, it doesn't. So moksha is totally something else experience. It helps in making a good society. But Sita mentioned society moves on. You can't have a law like Manu Smith is very clear that when you're young, you must live under your father, when you marry under your husband, and when you're old under your son. Now the way society is structured today, it actually makes no sense to do that. I'm not going to judge why he said that. There could be reasons for that society. But this day and age, it just doesn't make sense. And I think one thing else to remember as well, that Manusmriti became far more popular, from what I understand, in the last 200 years, primarily because being promoted. And so many of our Hindus get fixated because they think, you know, the idea of what you call the Abrahamic faith, like Judaism, they have the Torah, or we have ours as well. It doesn't work like that. Don't ever compare apples with oranges. Hinduism does not work, it's not driven by books. Books are important as a guide. Remember that even for moral conduct, for everything, all the shastras we have in any field, even Vyakaran, grammar, you name it, everything are but evolving. And that's how Hinduism is, as Nishit Bhai mentioned at the very start, Hinduism is a living religion. That's what we are about. Yeah. Thank you, Manish Bhai.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay Bhai. So one thing you mentioned is the Upanishads and this Shastras of realizing the self. And we see Gita is the gist of Upanishad. It's the book that most Hindus would say this is the most important book. How important is it to read Gita, and do we have to know what is the importance of Sanskrit? Because if we want to go back to the original source, we need to learn Sanskrit and understand it in Sanskrit, hopefully. How important is these things? Or could we just use some other modern book?
Okay, one thing about Sanskrit is quite interesting because Sanskrit was a lingua franca for 1,000 years in India. It was used for all kinds of fields. People forget that only 1% of Sanskrit, maybe 2% was actually scriptures, for religious scriptures. Sanskrit is for every other topic, not just that. But one thing to mention, which Sita also mentioned, Sanskrit can be quite archaic. By the way, the Sanskrit in the Vedas is not the same Sanskrit as used in like the modern Sanskrit, like Panini's grammar. They are different. It's quite archaic. And something else was the idea of Sita mentioned was short aphorisms. The reason why they're short aphorisms was it was easy to memorize. In the olden days, there was paper was very expensive. You couldn't have any writing material. Like the Panini's grammar is a very good example. Panini is Sanskrit grammar. If people don't understand Sanskrit, they say his entire book fits on a cow's hoof print, because you can memorize all the verses of the Ashtadhyayi. Why? Because it's so short, you can actually speak it out and get orally. It was passed for hundreds of years. Same with the Vedas, it's passed orally. So it's quite short and very condensed aphorisms. So the way you interpret can come out in very different ways. But having said that, look, the message of spirituality is universal. While Sanskrit is good if you really study the scriptures and go deep, spirituality is universal, could be accessed in any language. I mean, even the same in the West at one time, there was a big hoo-ha in Europe, in England, I know, when the first King James Bible came out in the Chaucer English, and all the padres and all the bishops going haywire, going crazy. How dare you pollute Latin and all that stuff, yeah? Look, God's message cannot be tied. I know it's Devanagari font, go the fonts, all that. And I read, by the way, I study Sanskrit as well. I love it. But the message of spirituality of Hinduism cannot be tied to language. It's universal for all languages. And I hope it spreads in German, English, in the entire world, in every language of the world, even the most primitive language. I hope it goes out. That's my wish. Sita Ben.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's definitely no way that this idea of God and spirituality can be captured through words, because language is a finite tool. How can we use finite tools to capture the infinite? That's the wonderful thing to remember. And a third part of the sort of equation, we talked about Shruti, we talked about Yukti. The third part is Swanubhuti, which is the personal experience that you're supposed to gain. So yes, we can hang on to these books, but they can only guide you to a certain point. They're like the signposts. That's what Dad always used to say. These scriptures, although however beautiful they are, and whoever brilliant personality has written them and put them together, they can't get you there. You have to get there yourself. They can sort of show you the directions like a sat nav, but they can't take you there. You have to get there yourself. And then when you get to that point, write your own scriptures, become a prophet yourself in English or German or whatever language, whichever country you're from. Write that and let people know. And, you often get, I got asked this at Eton last week, how do you know if you get a teacher who is genuine? And I remember what Dad said. He said, the only way you can tell if a teacher is genuine is if the words that come out of their mouth are totally original. And you think, I've never heard this before. I've never heard of spirituality explained in this new way. Then you know that this person is genuine. This person has had that spiritual experience. Otherwise, they just sort of regurgitate all of the ancient stuff, which has been said many times. Why not come up with your own stuff if you can get there?
Profound wisdom there, Sita Ben, wonderful to hear. I think we want to summarize this. So as we discussed that books are for guidance only, and Hinduism is not fixated on books. We have that's the reason we have thousands of books, but and we have so much knowledge, but we are not supposed to be fixated on books. And these books are for guide only. If you want to progress spiritually, then one has to make your own, find the guidance and move on and get that Swanubhuti, as Sita Ben said. So I think we'll start UTV. He's asked, according to Hinduism, how everything started, how human born and how everything created. Sita Ben, over to you.
Yeah, I missed a little bit of that question, but I think you basically said how did humanity and religion and idea involved. So yes, I think especially sort of in India, we were able to sort of focus not so much on the external environment to make sense of the world. We focused on the inner journey through introspection and through sort of spiritual experiences of hundreds of rishis throughout the ages. We were able to sort of formulate, it wasn't even just like a particular field of discipline that we followed. This was just how the cookie crumbled. That's what we were studying. What is the nature of reality? What are the sort of patterns in the universe, and how can we make sense of it? So rather than going to the external world to make sense of it, we went to the inner world. And what the ancient rishis found was just completely inspiring, and it's such a solid foundation we have, because it's not based on the experiences of just one person. It's based on the experiences of hundreds of people, and that continues even to this day. We've got modern rishis, modern saints. So Hinduism is very unique and special in that way, that we've got so many hundreds of thousands of rishis, saints and prophets who have had that spiritual experience and keep building to the beauty of Hinduism and helping us understand spirituality in the most sort of relevant way to society at the time. Vijay?
Sorry to interject. Vijay, if you could answer the question about the creation, how everything and how human beings came on earth as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. And the thing is that I think one thing to remember is that Hinduism has quite a few different interpretation explanations of how it came about. But one thing to remember is that from the earliest, from the earliest of man, when he had all his primitive beliefs, to this day, all the beliefs have always been part of Hinduism. The Hinduism allows you to progress in different ways. But the thing is this, look, the best one, I mean, regarding creation would be the Nasadiya Shukta is a very good example. It actually explains that when the world came into being and all the gods came into being, sometimes we do not know how they came or did they even come. What was there before? We're not sure. Because before creation, there was no space, time, whatever. So how can we know, right? And the Vedas actually accepts that. Regarding the idea of first human being born, there are stories about Manu as the first man, but by and large, the scriptures agree that we have been evolving through the universe, through ancient time, we've been evolving to this whatever body we have today. So Hinduism very much agrees with evolution, that we keep on evolving. And remember, in Hinduism, all life has got a soul. We are all living to the actual soul. Unlike in the Abrahamic faith, only when humans have a soul, we all have a soul. So we're all evolving. So in effect, we are linked to our evolution in that sense. So we have no problem with evolution to what we have come to today. But yes, there are very many stories, but I would say that there was no first human born. We actually evolved out of the animal kingdom. And we have no problem with that, yeah, to understand that. So just keep that in mind, yes? Yeah.
Okay. Vijay Bhai, an interesting question is from the same person. He's saying, can you elaborate or make video on if there is supposed to be a Hindu Shastra, what it look like? Now,
Hindu Rashtra, you mean?
Hindu
Rashtra.
Rashtra.
Yeah, okay. Okay, first of all, what does the Hindu Rashtra mean? I think one thing to remember is that key thing is this, which I think with India we should bring back, is the idea of dharma. Remember one thing, that Indian faiths are dharmas. They're not religion based on theos, which you must follow, otherwise you get punished or like that. The idea of dharma, so worshipping a deity or believing in working in spirituality is one thing, but how you live your life, that is very much part of Hinduism. And the idea of Sanatana Dharma is a very old kind of encompassing word. So Hindu Rashtra, in my view, is the one that follows dharma based on the idea of principles of dharma. Dharma means, doing your duty, righteous living, right? Seeing the divine in others. So dharma is a very big word, but so far, because of all these years of conquering of India, colonialism, and now we have this modern kind of India's quite aping Western ideas. We have lost those roots. If you want Hindu Rashtra, it's Rashtra based on dharma. When it comes to dharma, it doesn't base a particular religion. Like both dharma did very well in India, and all the kings were happy with that, or Jain dharma. So anything based on dharma is what a Hindu Rashtra, in my view, looked like. But yeah, it's not that straightforward. I mean, I can't put a book and write everything down. But by and large, the wonderful ideas we have in Hinduism, all these ideas of dharma, if we can work on that, then I think we are well on the way to having a good Hindu Rashtra. But tough question, that one, actually. Sita Ben.
Yeah, no, there's not much more I can add. I think another sort of important aspect to remember is, throughout the sort of recent history of India, where, we've had, colonialism, we've had all of these sort of issues and secularism taking more of a mainstream role. I think it now is really important to sort of shift the emphasis back towards spirituality and emphasizing how important it is for India, because it's been the backbone of the Indian civilization for thousands of years. And it feels like so silly to just throw it away just to sort of catch up and copy, other sort of countries. Why not hang on to the beauty of spirituality, which we've had for thousands of years, because that's our uniqueness and that's our strength.
Wonderful explanation there, Sitaben. We take a next question. The same viewer asked the question, where Shiva was born, in which part of India? Now, let me just answer that quickly. Shiva is not born, never dies, so he's unborn. So there you go. You can forget about where he was born. We move on to next question. Judge for YouTuber thinking, sharing his thoughts. He says Hinduism gets caught up in being symbolic to every little thing, and 360 degrees a year people are lost in ritual. Get so busy trying to do the tradition that they forgot about asking question inwards, who am I, etc. Is that true? Are we too busy doing rituals and maybe going to temples and reading even some of our books that we do not look inwards and say, who am I, and try to explore this sort of question? Sitaben?
Yes, there is a real danger to that. As the viewer said, there are so many different rituals. There's so many different lunar calendar months and events going on. to the point where, you know, if you think that's all religion is, if you think religion is just rituals, it's very, very easy to just get caught up in that. And literally, like, every few days there's something or other to fast for, or there's something or other to focus on. But we have to understand there is a benefit to rituals in the sense that they sort of are a reminder of God in our everyday lives. They give us a pause in our everyday lives to think about higher things. But remember that rituals are actually just the superficial aspect of religion and spirituality. They are sort of there to say, hang on, take a break, take a pause from your everyday life, do some disciplines like fasting or meditation. But there is so much more to it. Use that time to sort of focus on that inner journey, that inner spiritual journey. How can you live more spiritually rather than in a materialistic way? How can you sort of, you know, multiply yourself and see yourselves in others? I mean, you're probably better off, you know, doing charitable work than sort of doing all these ritualistic things, which you can easily get caught up in. And sometimes you get people who are very sort of caught up in the sort of horoscopes and astrology, and, you know, you can only do certain things at certain times of the day. And if you follow that every day, you're just going to go crazy, because there's auspicious and inauspicious times throughout the day. That means I can't even go out the house for 3 hours because it's inauspicious. Please do not get caught up in all of these things. They do have a relevance and a purpose and a cultural aspect, but remember that's a superficial aspect of religion. Dive deeper into the spiritual gems of Hinduism. Vijay Bhai?
I think Sita, you kind of basically covered it, but it's a very valid question from, thoughts chat for YouTube. I mean, as Jay used to say, that if it becomes mechanical, if you keep on doing this as a mechanical, then there's no point of having rituals. I think very few people from rituals, actually, in the rituals, they actually understand, ask the question, who I am inwards. But I think by far, most of them, I've noticed, I'll be honest with you, I've gone to some of these yagnas, like Maha Yagnas as well. And some of the big show, you have all these big, leaders of the temple who sit in the front and say, I can do this ritual, I can do this ritual. But do they ask the question inwards, who am I? How does it help me to progress spiritually? And quite often, no. Then there is no point. So we have to be very careful. If these rituals, as Sita mentioned, it should be a reminder of God. But if it becomes a mechanical aspect, like even with puja, I've noticed that if you do puja every day and you go, oh, okay, I have to do my 5-minute puja, ring bell and go out. If you ask somebody after 2 minutes, what sloka you read in the book, they can't remember what sloka they read because they just read it mechanically and they forgot. It's happened to me as well, to be honest. I've been asked my mother, I read a quick book, one sloka from Shikshapati, for example, and she asked me 5 minutes, hey, what do you read? Oh, I can't remember because, it's become mechanical. So you have to be very careful. Rituals are only beneficial if you focus and makes them remind you of God. Now, that's all I can add that one, Ishmael. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Sita Ben Vijay Bhai. We take a next question. Anuj Panwar asking, is Gita, it was a short question, sorry. Is Gita
a gist of Upanishads? Yeah.
Gist of Upanishads. Yes, it is, I think. Do we want to, Vijay Bhai, do you want to expand on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think this is something that me and Sita are teaching the class all the time, because what we say is that the Upanishads are kind of the philosophical aspects of Hinduism, the deeper aspects of Atma and Brahman. But how do you put them in practice? So Gita is the practical interpretation, practical implementation of the great teachings of the Upanishads. That's why Gita is very special. Now, the Upanishads are very, very, abstract, and the verses are so broad and wide in meaning. How do you get all the aspects together and put them in practice? And the Gita is the most beautiful book to do that. So yes, it is the gist of the Upanishads in that sense. Sita Ben?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it. So the Bhagavad Gita is basically a synthesis of all Hindu beliefs. So it talks about how to put religion into practice. It talks about the different pathways to God. It talks about key Hindu beliefs such as reincarnation, the law of karma. It brings in so many different aspects that, if you tried to look through all the hundreds of Upanishads, you'll go crazy. But if you read the Bhagavad Gita, you do get that summary and a more practical way of putting spirituality into practice in your everyday life.
Wonderful answer. We take a next question from Charmaine. She's said her thoughts about, she's saying, I think the real problem is the way Bollywood distorts the Shastras. It seems the avatars are now portrayed as superheroes with tons of makeup, unrealistic physiques. So what we see is some of these Indian TV channel also, showing some of these programs on, say, Sri Krishna, or there was Mahadev, the program on Siva, and they try to focus on the Puranic aspect and these colorful stories. And they do so colorful stuff, but are they beneficial to us, or are they actually creating a wrong image? Vijay bhai, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I tell you one thing. It's true, because when you look at some of these heroes on these programs, there is wonderful, silk clothes and flowing hair. I don't know what they wear, but tons of makeup. They're so unrealistic sometimes that you wonder, I mean, how did they come up with these characters? But look, I think the important thing is that if you watch this program and you get stuck on them, then it's a problem. You have to move ahead, because they're so dramatic, and the music they play, they put the camera on the face of a particular god, and music goes, I don't know how the music goes, and it's stuck for like 5 minutes. It's like really gets you grossed in and gets you stuck. But if you get stuck there and only do that, then it's not good. You have to move forward, and as we teach all the time in this program, move up spiritually, look inwards, connect yourself with nature wide. So you have to be very careful. This doesn't limit your understanding and thought of what spirituality is. What is the idea of the Atman Brahman? If it limits you from understanding that idea, then this is not beneficial for you. But yeah, they're quite, I mean, I've not seen them, but I've got glimpses when I go to somebody's house, and they look way too dramatic for me. So I don't really watch them. Sitaben.
Actually, I mean, having said that, I mean, at the moment, I'm really seeing a benefit to these, because
Okay.
my daughter is totally in love with this Krishna program, which is on every week. She's always looking forward to seeing this, the next episode of Baby Krishna's story. So from that perspective, it's
Yes.
wonderful, because
Yeah.
Uma is totally in love with Krishna, because she's watching these beautiful reenactments of the wonderful stories. But you have to understand its limitations as well. This is not what Hinduism is all about. You understand it from the perspective of a child. It's wonderful. You think, wow, Hinduism has got so many wonderful gods and goddesses. And when I was a child, my parents grew me up on these beautiful videos and stories of gods and goddesses. But you must grow up. That's the key sort of caveat in this. You must grow up. When it gets to a certain point, understand them for what they are. They're, colorful dramatizations of these stories, but go to the deeper part. That's what we keep saying. Go to the deeper philosophy to give real meaning and purpose to your life.
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben. We take a next question. It's from Sanskar Chaudhary. He's saying, sir, my question is, I am a poet. I have to live with pain to write about it. But spiritual part is so balanced. So he's saying, if I follow spiritual path, I won't feel the pain and hence won't be able to write about it. Is it true? I mean, I think if you follow on a spiritual path, you likely to get more pain in your, you encounter more pain. What do you say, Sitaben?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think what spirituality brings is more of a better perspective, because pain is inevitable. Whatever you do, however much you chase after happiness, pain is bound to follow. And if you have that spiritual angle to your life, it makes you have some perspective that, as Buddha says, this too shall pass. So if you're going through a very difficult time, remember that, it's the other side of the coin. You're going to get some kind of happiness at the end. Or if you're going through a happy time, remember this too shall pass, and it tempers your happiness. And what the Bhagavad Gita does, it talks about being sthita prajna, being of steady mind, because when we're living through a very sort of material life of ups and downs, and you get happy moments, you get sad moments, it gets exhausting going on this mental roller coaster every day of your life for however many years you live. Have a steady mind. And it's very easy to talk about, because I go through the roller coaster all day long, and I'm moments of really happy and moments of really, really sad and crying and all sorts. But that's what the Bhagavad Gita teaches. Be of steady mind. Go through life, but in a tempered and balanced way. And that's what spirituality brings. It gives us the coping mechanism for dealing with happiness and unhappiness. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question from Sanskar Chaudhary. I think if you, as a poet, if you write about dark stuff and you want to feel that pain to write those poetry, one thing to remember that in Hinduism, for millennia, we have this idea of tantric traditions, which are the unorthodox traditions, right? But you have to be very careful. To practice those traditions can actually get you disoriented or they send you on the wrong path. Only the great spiritual giants like, Ramakrishna Paramhans, who actually got this first experience, they can experience all the different pathways to spirituality, including the dark tantric parts as well. So I would say that for you, for writing poetry, it may be good. Maybe it helps you write your poetry, feel the pain, but still follow the spiritual path as well. Do both if you can, yes, because it's important as well. But don't get too engrossed. If you get too engrossed and you lose your path, then I would say please watch out, yes. But by and large, as Manish Bhai said, spiritual path can also be very painful if you really want to struggle to something. So use that as well as an experience, write your poetry, hopefully. I don't know. I mean, it's a very interesting question. Not something I've come across. Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Sanskar, for that. Yeah. Manish Bhai.
We have a few questions. Mohammed is asking, how many gods do you have? Vijay Bhai, quick one.
Okay, we only have one ultimate reality, one ultimate principle, only one. Whether you call it God or a principle doesn't matter. Everything else is a manifestation of that one ultimate principle. And by the way, interesting thing to mention, Mohammed, is that there are millions of Hindus who don't believe in image worship. Don't think that all Hindus believe in kind of idols. Something else to remember as well, there's a very strong belief among the Abrahamic faith that Hindus believe in idols. We don't believe in idols. Belief in idol means that the stone itself has power, like, special stones like Parasmani. Idols don't have power. Idols are but a focus point to focus on the infinite. Because our brain power is not possible to focus on the infinite, we bring you in a finite form. And the finite form we use could be anything, could be artifact, like, we say, from prati means going towards your pratima, image, or your pratiks, or objects, maybe books, a mosque, anything we can use to focus on God. So there's only one ultimate reality, and it can be seen in many different ways. That's all I can add. Sita Ben, with me.
Yeah, I think you basically covered it. Hinduism is often misinterpreted as being polytheistic, that we've got so many different gods, and what kind of a religion is that? Because, there's only one ultimate God, and it's a big contradiction in terms. But as Vijay Bhai said, and as Dad has said in many of his videos, we're pluralistic in tradition, and depending on your particular standpoint, you focus on a path that suits you the most.
Amazing. So, folks, it's almost 50 minutes into the conversation today, and how time has flown past. I mean, we've got a whole range of questions we haven't even yet come across to answer yet. So I'm going to ask a few quick ones. Manish Bhai, how would you describe reality?
Oh, that's a big question. I haven't experienced it. So how do I experience the reality? What reality we see through our senses, is it true? That's the question. And what our Rishi says is there is some underlying principles which you experience when you are able to rise above the sense perceptions, etc. And that reality is what the way to experience is. There is at deeper level, everything is connected, and there is one, and that experience is the highest experience, we say. So at deeper level, everything is connected, but at our level, we are looking at sense through our senses, and we perceive what we think is real.
Correct. I remember the movie The Matrix, where Neo was given the red or the green pill. And then, he woke up and he's actually experiencing world in some totally different form. So you never really know what things are really like. You're absolutely right. We rely on sensory perception, and that's how we perceive reality. Next one for Vijay Bhai. In Hinduism, there is no concept of conversion, but other religions have it. Isn't it a threat to Hinduism?
I think long term, I don't think so, because as people get more and more knowledgeable, they will think for themselves. I mean, conversion is something that for religions which believe that they are right. Hinduism does not say that. I think we should be very careful not to start converting others. Let everybody act spiritually in their own way. Whether it's atheist, theist, agnostic, it's very important. No matter how hard we struggle, we may think that the Abrahamic faith are converting, but I believe the very long term it will not work. That's my view, because people ultimately will think for themselves. That's all I can add to that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we have a next question from Bhanu Prakash Adhikari, who says that one day if they come to London, they're going to bring us whole box of sweets. The question is, how does one control anger? Sitaben?
Yes, as we were saying, the Bhagavad Gita teaches us about Sthita Prajna, being of steady mind. And if you look at everything with a level head, it helps you sort of cope with all of the ups and downs and helps you sort of temper the happiness, but also get through the difficult times as well. And that includes becoming angry. So in a way, when you're sort of faced with a situation where, you know, it could make you angry, just think of it as that person who is making you angry. They are actually teaching you a life lesson in a particular way. You're learning something from that experience. So think of it in a way that they are inadvertently helping you. So if you think like that, it makes you think, oh, maybe it's not so bad after all. And also another way of maybe looking at it is by saying, you know, see it from their perspective. You know, you are all spirit. All of us are spirit. That person who's making you angry is also spirit. Think of things from their perspective, and it helps you sort of temper your anger.
Amazing. So the next question is from Saurabh Singh, and they're just talking about how big the entire universe is, with trillions of galaxies, each containing, you know, trillions of suns and planets and everything. And when you look at our own solar system, I think 98% of the mass is made up in the sun alone. But the whole thing he's saying is, are there souls across the entire universe, or is it a universe devoid of any meaning?
Okay, I can answer that. Yeah. So first of all, the whole universe, I mean, Hindus have no problem accepting that Hindu universe is vast. Actually, we love, as I mentioned, we love big numbers, trillions. I know there's trillions of galaxies. I think there's more stars in the universe than the grains of sand on Earth, I've been told. That's fast. But we all part and parcel of that creation. We are not separate. As Manisha mentioned, we all indirectly connected to everything. And the idea of Brahman, manifest universe, is also divine. So the universe itself in itself is divine. And we're all linked to it, everything. So regarding other souls in the universe, I believe there could be other souls in the universe. Of course, I haven't experienced it. I went through the oneness of everything. But yes, why not? Why not can the universe be? Why only Earth can be full of spirituality? It could be the whole universe. Yes. I don't know, but I think yes. Yeah.
Fabulous. We are almost 3 minutes now to the hour. What I will do is I will just quickly perhaps share some of our resources, then bring this to a close. Folks, those of you who are not yet enrolled onto this course, I would highly recommend you do so. This is a basics of Hinduism course. As you can see, over 7,500 people are already enrolled into it. It's got 10 modules, and at the end, it's got 110 questions, which will test you on your knowledge of the basics of Hinduism. So definitely do give that a go. And if you are a student who is sitting for the IGCSE exams, then please note that we have another course along with this, which is specifically for the GCSE students. The other resource we've got for you is our wonderful YouTube channel. As you can see here, we are close to 98,000 subscribers, which is really, really good. Thank you everybody for subscribing. If you haven't yet subscribed, please take just one moment and hit the subscribe button. My goal is to get us to the 100K mark before the end of the year. And that's one knowledge place where we've got so many videos, 3,750 videos are situated here. Some of them are neatly organized into playlists that you can view. So please do explore that. And then the last resource we've got for you is our website, which is hindu-academy.com, where you can download the free ebooks that we've got on Hinduism as well. and you've got other resources on this website. So that is some of the things that I wanted to share. I haven't found an appropriate quote today from Swami Vivekananda. So if I have a volunteer from one of my panels, any quote that you feel like sharing, and we'll end on a positive note.
Yeah, I've got a quote. It reminds me very much of what Manish Bhai puts at the end of his emails. He always puts this beautiful quote: "They alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive."
Fabulous. And with that, folks, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. We've got people from all around the world, we had one gentleman from Adelaide in Australia, where it is 1:30 at night when he's joining us. So, kudos to you all. Thank you all for your wonderful contributions, your thoughts, your comments, the way you engage with each other online. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time, as always. Bye-bye for now.